Hey, writers, let's get started today. When you think about true stories that you could write, some of you are coming up with these great, big, giant topics like I could write about my life, or I could write about my whole day at school. We call those watermelon topics because they are so big. Does it feel like sometimes when you sit down to write, you will have to write and write and write, and that you have to tell every single detail? Does your story feel like maybe you've got a giant watermelon in your arms that you're lugging around? Thumbs up if you know what I mean, or you felt that way, like your story is never going to end. Today, I want to teach you that instead of writing about giant, huge watermelon topics, writers write about teeny tiny seed stories, little stories that live inside that one big watermelon. I'm pretty sure that George McClements, the author of The Veggie Monster, when he sat down to write, like we're all going to do really soon, he probably had a few big, huge topics on his brain. I think of those topics as watermelon topics. George McClements probably thought, I could write about my vacation, or I could write about eating food with my family, which are both watermelon topics. But here is the thing. George knows that really great writers don't usually write about huge watermelon topics. Instead, great story writers know that inside any one of those topics, there live a zillion little stories. Inside the topic, eating with my family, George could have written about the time he took his son to the pancake house, or he could have wrote about the time he made fantastic meatballs and how his son ate 5 of them all at one time. Or George could write about the time when his son learned how to eat with chopsticks. Those would all be teeny tiny seed topics. But George decided not to write all about a watermelon topic, and instead he decided to write just one teeny tiny seed topic. So he wrote just about one time when his son, who can't stand veggies, are there any of you out there, put his parents through one of his Veggie Monster performances while facing a plate of peas. Let's say, first grade, that you decided to write about today at school, today at virtual school. Think to yourself, is that a teeny seed story, today at school, or is that a giant watermelon topic? What do you think? Today at school, is that a watermelon topic or a tiny seed topic? You guessed it. If you write about today at school, that is a watermelon topic because it could go on for so long. You could talk about morning circle, you could talk about all the lessons you learned, the lesson you learned during reading workshop, then you could talk about reading in reading workshop and meeting with your teacher during guided reading. Then you could talk about going to specials class. You could talk about something silly your brother said at lunchtime. You could talk about math class and the game you played, and you get my point. I'm going on and on and on. That would be a gigantic watermelon story. Those aren't great stories. They get boring. We need to write a teeny tiny seed story. So we can learn from George that good story writers pick a teeny tiny seed story to write. So I'm going to write about, maybe last year when I dropped my class off at specials class and something silly happened. That would be a little seed story. Writers, I've got one giant watermelon topic in my brain. and that is school. But then I picked one teeny tiny thing that happened at school, something silly that happened while dropping my class off at specials. Right now, think back to our big watermelon topic of what happened at school today. But this time, I want you to think or pick a tiny moment from today that happened to you. When you have that tiny seed story in your brain, will you pop a thumb? Excellent, writers. Let's practice right now finding other seed stories inside of huge watermelon topics, okay? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tell you an example of a type of story, and then you're gonna say watermelon or seed. Here we go. Playing with a friend. Is that a watermelon topic or a seed story? You guessed it, it's a watermelon topic. You need to think of one particular time that you played with your friend. One fun time or bad time or sad time when you hung out with a friend. And then it would be a seed story. What about this? Is this a watermelon or a seed topic? Things you do in the wintertime. Duh, you guessed it, that's a watermelon topic. You need to think of one particular time when you did something in the winter. And then that could be a seed story. Now, writers, today you learned that good writers think first of big watermelon topics, but then they have to remember, I can't write all of that stuff down. It's too much and my reader's gonna get so bored. So then you have to narrow your focus and think about those seed stories that live inside of those giant watermelon topics. You've got it, writers. Go write lots of seed stories today. Off you go.